Hi. Today we are exploring the open focus path to inner peace. The human brain, when it comes to trying to understand the brain, researchers start with a strongly biased question: what is wrong with the brain? We need to abandon this biased view of the brain, of the human central nervous system, as somehow genetically and chemically flawed, and the belief that a growing number of powerful drugs whose mechanisms and long-term effects remain disturbingly unknown, that it will somehow fix us. Instead, we need to ask what is right with the nervous system and how can we enhance it by reducing operator errors? Well, the best treatment tool for many, in my view, is attention training. The misuse and rigidity of attention get most of us into the chronic problems of anxiety, depression, and pain. And the effective use of attention skills can get us out. Flexible attention may not fix everything, but it can do far more than imagined. Dr. Les Femi. The Buddha. The young Siddhartha Gautama was born crowned prince of the Shakya kingdom in India and relinquished his crown in order to ascertain and uproot the causes of suffering. His life resulted in the realization of meditation techniques that garnered him the title Shakyamuni Buddha. In science, interest in the Buddha's form of mindfulness meditation has grown throughout the years and is providing current tools to reduce stress, anxiety, and addictions, theorized to be attached to mind wandering and narrow focused attention. Open focus. A major school of thought arose in the 1960s via neurofeedback pioneer Dr. Les Femi, whose intention was to help his clients develop alpha brain waves, the state of wakeful relaxation. Femi developed a therapy series in the 1970s consisting of exercises in which he guided his patients into alpha brain states using something he calls open focus. Neurofeedback. Femi first employed the open focus therapy in clinical settings where he garnered knowledge using biofeedback equipment. In The Open Focus Brain, Harnessing the Power to Heal Mind and Body, the author asserts that many of us have become stuck in narrow focused attention, a tense, constricted survival mode of attention that holds us in a state of chronic stress, and which lies at the root of common ailments, including anxiety, depression, ADD, stress-related migraines, and more. Results. Mindfulness techniques, such as open focus, are documented as altering these associative learning patterns by interrupting the emotional activity ingrained into the human psyche. Such therapy has proven to be beneficial for pain reduction, substance abuse, anxiety, and depression within both clinical and non-clinical populaces. Improvements have also been noted in heightened focused abilities, advanced cognitive abilities, flexibility, reduced emotional reactivity, and balancing distorted self-perceptions. So the best way to experience open focus is to experience open focus, and there are several ways to do that. One is I'm going to put on one of Dr. Femi's recordings now and allow you to experience it. You can also go to the website, the Princeton Biofeedback Center. It has a plethora of resources, free downloadable MP3s where you can experience the open focus techniques and training, certification if you desire, just a host of things. So I will take you, actually play one introduction audio that explains the process. And then we'll move into another sort of full blown open focus session, which lasts about 30 minutes. So if you don't have a full 30 minutes to sit in through the whole session, it's understandable, but at least try and practice 5 minutes at least. And a couple of notes, it does cause relaxation, particularly if you do it with your eyes closed. It's recommended to not lie down and not recline, because most people do fall asleep. You move into such relaxed states that it's inevitable, and it's okay during the early stages of practicing. If your body needs to rest, then you need to rest. However, you do want to get to a point to where you can remain awake. And I've been practicing forms of open focus off and on for many years, so I can actually do it with my eyes open. If you can do the same thing, that's also helpful for not falling asleep. And the other thing that supports me in my practice, Dr. Femi repeatedly encourages the subject to imagine certain things. He uses verbiage like imagine this and imagine that. What I do mentally, I replace the word imagine with observe or experience. And for me, that does the trick much better. But you can play around with it though. Imagine might work perfectly well for you, but I know it's just something that has been beneficial for me. So I wanted to share it with you also. So first and foremost, as I said, we will start with the introduction video, and feel free to come back as often as you would like to experience this. And in the meantime, it is recommended to practice this open focus technique at least twice a day for best benefits, highest benefits, and as often as you'd like. So here goes.
The open focus exercises consist of a series of questions about your ability to imagine certain experiences. Can you imagine letting your mind and body naturally respond to the questions without giving any particular effort to achieving any one of these images or experiences? For example, when I ask, can you imagine the distance between your eyes? You might naturally experience your eyes and then let your imagination flow to the region between your eyes and imagine the distance between them. Your objective is not to come up with some number or other abstraction, such as, there are 2 inches between my eyes. The objective is to very gently imagine or experience that distance or region between your eyes. You initially may imagine or experience the distance as a very small region or vague feeling, and the distance might then expand or change as you continue to maintain your orientation in that region. The experience often changes with continued practice. Your opening awareness of all your emerging experience is a continuing process. There will be approximately 15 seconds between questions. And for that period, I would like you to maintain your attention on the subject of the last question. If you have any difficulty imagining any particular image or experience, don't let that trouble you. Just permit your imagination to remain oriented toward the object of the question and let your experience evolve naturally. If nothing particular seems to happen or your mind wanders, don't be disturbed. In the event that you happen to notice that your attention has wandered and is focused upon some thought, image, or feeling, neither resist nor encourage this process. Merely allow your attentional focus to expand to include also the image of the current open focus question, in addition to the perception to which your mind has wandered. While most people find it helpful to close their eyes while practicing, after some facility is gained, the practice may be done with eyes open or half open. Practicing with eyes fully or partially open enhances the transfer of the open focus to daily life situations. Again, in order to facilitate transfer of open focus effects to daily life situations, a relatively erect body posture is recommended, sitting or standing. Reclining positions often are not effective after some period of practice, since they encourage the onset of sleep. Although drifting in and out of sleep may be a necessary developmental stage in the course of practice, deep sleep and associated loss of muscle tone are to be avoided. Finally, you needn't respond overtly in any way to these questions. Your response will be whatever happens to your imagery or experience when the question is asked.
Okay, so that was Dr. Lasfemi offering the introductory
Take a moment
explanation.
now to adjust your posture.
And so now we're going into the meditation technique here. I'm going to see if I can just forward it a little bit so that we dive right into the session. So I pretty much explained what we're doing. And so now we're moving into the actual practice. Again, it lasts about 30 minutes. Stay for as long as you can. Hopefully you can do the whole session, but if not, do as much as you can. Okay, and this will be the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon.
Can you imagine the distance between your eyes? Is it possible for you to imagine the space inside your nose as you inhale and exhale naturally? Can you imagine your breath flowing behind your eyes as you inhale naturally? Can you imagine the distance between the space inside your nose and your eyes? Can you imagine the space inside your throat as you inhale naturally? Is it possible for you to imagine the distance between the space inside your throat and the space inside your nose? the space inside your mouth and cheeks. Is it possible for you to imagine the surface of your tongue? Is it possible for you to imagine the entire region contained within the surface of your tongue? That is, can you imagine the volume of your tongue? Can you imagine the volume of your teeth and gums? Can you imagine the volume of your lips? Is it possible for you to imagine the distance between your upper lip and the base of your nose? Can you imagine the distance between the space inside your throat and the tip of your chin? Can you imagine the space inside your ears? Is it possible for you to imagine the distance between the space inside your throat and the space inside your ears? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the space inside your ears? Can you imagine the distance between your ears? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and your temples? Can you imagine the distance between your temples? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the top of your head? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the back of your neck? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and your cheekbones? Can you imagine the distance between your cheekbones? Is it possible for you to imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and your eyes? Can you imagine the distance between your eyes? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the middle of your forehead? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the corners of your mouth? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and your lower lip? Can you imagine the distance between the corners of your mouth and your nostrils? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of your entire jaw? Can you imagine the distance between your nostrils? Can you imagine the space inside the bridge of your nose? Can you imagine the distance between the space inside the bridge of your nose and the back of your head? Can you imagine the distance between the space inside the bridge of your nose and your eyes? Is it possible for you to imagine that the region around your eyes is filled with space? Can you imagine the volume of your eyelids? Can you imagine the distance between your eyelids and your eyebrows? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of your forehead? Can you imagine the distance between the space inside the bridge of your nose and a point in the middle of your forehead? Can you imagine the distance between the space inside the bridge of your nose and your hairline? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of your entire face simultaneously, including your ears and your jaw and your nose and your tongue, teeth and gums and lips? Can you imagine at the same time the volume of your scalp? Can you imagine that as you inhale, naturally, your breath fills the entire volume of your face and scalp and head, including your ears and jaw and eyes? Can you imagine that as you exhale and as your breath leaves your body, it leaves your face, scalp, and head empty, that is filled with space? Can you imagine the space inside your throat expanding until your entire neck is filled with space. Can you imagine the distance between the space inside your neck and the tips of your shoulders? Can you imagine the space inside your throat and neck expanding to fill the entire region of your shoulders? Can you imagine the volume of your upper arms? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of your upper and lower arms simultaneously? Can you imagine the volume of your arms and your hands simultaneously? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of your thumbs? Can you imagine the volume of your first fingers? Is it possible for you to imagine the space between your thumb and first finger on each hand? Can you imagine the volume of your middle finger on each hand? Can you imagine the space between your first finger and your middle finger on each hand? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of your fourth finger on each hand? Can you imagine the space between your middle and fourth fingers? Can you imagine the volume of your little fingers? Can you imagine the space between your fourth and little fingers? Is it possible for you to imagine the volume of all of your fingers simultaneously? And at the same time, imagine the space between all of your fingers. Can you imagine the volume of your shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers? And at the same time, imagine a space between your fingers and the distance or space between your arms. Can you imagine that as you inhale naturally, your breath fills your entire head, neck, shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers? And that as you exhale, and as your breath leaves your body, it leaves this entire region filled with space. At the same time, you're aware of the space inside this entire region. Is it possible for you also to imagine the space around these regions? Space between your fingers, space between your arms, space around your arms and shoulders and neck and head. Can you imagine that as you continue to practice, your experience will become more vivid and more effortless? Can you imagine practicing this exercise at least twice daily? Take a moment now to adjust your posture.